Ja, willkommen heute an euch alle, an alle Zuhörerinnen und Zuhörer. Mein Name ist Alice, ich bin von Mera 25 und ja, wir kommen zu einer neuen Folge von Radio Mera, heute auf Englisch diesmal und mit einem ganz besonderen Gast. Our guest today is known as an international award-winning Lebanese singer. She is known as the first female rock star, basically, of the Middle East. She's also a poet and a passionate human rights activist who just recently delivered a very impactful speech on Zionism and apartheid in the occupied Palestine. And so, yeah, Lydia Canaan, it's great to have you tonight and to have the opportunity to talk to you today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. So before we talk about your recent speech about Palestine, I would like to ask you some questions about your early life and upbringing. You were born in Lebanon, and that was during the Civil War. And I was wondering if you could share with us how that was for you, how the Civil War at that time impacted your early life, and maybe also your choices of becoming an artist, becoming a poet, and also becoming a human rights activist.
As you said, I was born during the Civil War, and it has impacted me a great deal, and it has impacted the entire generation too. And one never really heal from the wounds of war, even long after the sound of the bombs end, because there is always the post-trauma, psychologically, that can affect you. It's like one can never heal from it, but you learn with time to adapt to it, sadly, because this is not a normal way to adapt to being born and being raised during a really bloody war. You called it a civil war, and it is always, called a civil war, but I refuse to call it a civil war. I have always called it an imposed civil war on Lebanon, unfortunately, which lasted 15 years. I can never ever forget how it impacted me. And although I just said that one learned to adapt and go on through life, but every now and then, it's like it's somehow lingering, behind you, and it pops up, and this is something that I would never want to wish to anyone. And this is why I feel so much deeply and beyond words with what is happening currently and what was happening in occupied Palestine. And I have seen so much trauma growing up, during this imported civil war, because my parents' home was located on a ground floor, and it was used as a shelter to shelter the entire neighborhoods. So we had maybe approximately around 50 people sheltering at my parents' home because it was partially safe. Although we later had a bomb, destroying an entire living area. And then we had another bomb, which fortunately did not explode, but it was right at the entrance of the main door. And because of all of the bombs and shelling, and we at a certain time, my parents have transformed part of the house into a makeshift hospital, to treat the lightly wounded. And yes, as a child, I have seen people bleeding. I have seen people, with severe wounds, and it's something that remains with you. It is not something that a child should be experiencing, you know. And many times I would wonder and ask, why can't I and so many children of my generation live I'm sorry, but I get very emotional.
No, thank you for
Sorry for that.
sharing. No, please, thank you for sharing. It's insane the traumatic, like the traumatic consequence that all this has, and it's unbelievable to see this happening over and over to children again, and to
Yeah,
feel
I
like
mean,
that we know all the
I
things that we could do to stop it, but now we're still seeing it, right? We're seeing it today,
yeah,
so on
yeah.
our phones, everything.
Exactly,
And
exactly. It's
as you
been live streaming on our phone, and I feel with them, and it's the same questions that they ask. Why can't we live in peace? Why can't we live like other children in other countries, living, you know, a normal life?
Yes.
And from a very, very young age, it's crazy, Alice. One learn how to assume responsibility as a child, you know. It's like your priorities, your entire life changes completely. You are aware of your mortality, which is an insane thing to even think, that a child has to be aware of his and her mortality, you know, that at any moment you could lose your life, or if your parents go out to try to get some bread and they may never come back, in a blink of an eye you can lose loved ones. So this has marked me, and I get emotional when I talk about it, because it has never stopped, you know. It's happening in neighboring occupied Palestine, and it shatters my heart to pieces. I try my best as a passionate humanitarian, and as I call myself an artist with a purpose, to use my speaking voice, you know, to bring awareness to people's plight, you know, to the Palestinian plight. But it's like, you know, you want it to stop now, and not even have, you know, talks, and maybe we can stop it later, or maybe we can do. No, it has to stop right now, right this moment. And it really pains me, and that there are so many great activists all around the world doing their utmost, and doing, maybe, you know, going out of their way to just try to stop this. And we are so shocked, I mean, to say the least, that it intensifies even more, you know, as if they're doing it on purpose, and maybe not as if they are doing it intentionally and on purpose, to continue this cycle of war, of colonialism, settler colonialism, of occupation, of apartheid, of genocide, because there is so much money behind this whole military industrial complex, military industrial business, you know. So this has to stop. It has to stop now, and not in a minute, and not in an hour, and not tomorrow, and not when we try to make get the United Nations Security Council to intervene. No, it has to stop right now.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And actually, you're bringing me to a question that I wanted to ask you in the end, but now it fits very well here. Especially in the context of Palestine, we hear often that international law has failed Palestinians. You're also just very well explained how it failed Lebanese children, how it fails so many other children, and right now, very clearly, Palestinians. Um, as someone who works a lot with international law and with bodies that use international law, where do you see the biggest failures in this system, and how do you think it can become more effective? Do you even still see hope that our international system and our international laws can bring justice for Palestinians and at large for oppressed peoples?
where is the biggest failure? I mean, there are so many failures, and if I would have to pick one failure, it's like undermining all other failures. The whole system has failed. The whole system. And come to think about it, maybe the system was built so that it never functions. This is my personal belief. This is my personal experience, because it's like laws were made to cover the aggressor, and punishment was made to punish the oppressed. The whole system is upside down. The whole system was made just to cover up, you know, the perpetrators. So we need a new system. I mean, it is obvious. Even a 5-year-old child can explain to you that this is not normal. This is not natural. This is not human. I do not see ourselves as a 21st century civilization. I see ourselves, as unfortunately, those who are so-called in positions of governing and places, as if we were in the Middle Ages, you know. People talk about technology and all of this, but is this what civilization is all about? Is it technology that today I can drive a car rather than, you know, ride a horse? This is not civilization. That's not how I see that we can progress and we can go forward as a civilization. I think the bedrock of civilization is the most important thing is humanity, is human rights. It's what defines us as humans. It's not our nationality, it's not our religion, it's not our race and ethnicity. It's our humanity, how we can work together collectively. And if I see hope, yes, I see hope. Yes, every day I see hope. I see hope so much in the children of Palestine. I see hope in the students that are doing all of these demonstrations from America to every spot in the whole world. Yes, I see hope. I do see hope. And even if it's a small ray of hope, but it is hope. It is a voice. It is indignation. It is outrage. You know, people have to be outraged. People have to be angry. It's our right to be angry. We need to speak up, you know, and that gives me hope. That really gives me hope. Even if it's small, tiny things, but let me give you just a small example. Palestinians were forbidden to carry a flag, the Palestinian flag, on their own occupied indigenous land. They were forbidden, they were beaten, they were killed, they were sniped, they were imprisoned, they were tortured. Today, the entire world is carrying the Palestinian flag, you know, and raising it, you know. That gives me hope. That is a small, tiny example, Alice. And there are so many other examples of people waking up and realizing that we were propagandized since ages through this, unfortunately, Western intelligence apparatus media. That's in media. That's not in media at all. This is the mouth full of and the spokes mouth, you know, of all of the intelligence apparatus of Western countries, you know, feeding people propaganda, feeding them lies, eclipsing the truth, you know. And this is why the entire world is shocked now, because everything was portrayed upside down. They portrayed the occupier as the victim. They portrayed the occupied as the terrorist even, you know. There was a time, I remember when I was young, you couldn't even say the word Palestinian in Lebanon, you know. It's like you had to just, you know, whisper it on low voice. This is how they played people, you know, against each other, because there's money, follow the money trail. This old adage still applies, unfortunately. That, yeah, there is a lot of business, there's big business. And what is happening in occupied Palestine, what is happening in Gaza, it's all about all of the natural resources and the trillions of dollars that the whole coastline of the Gaza Strip has, which would enrich occupied Palestine. But they want to, you know, it's a big cake for all the Western players, and they all want to share the cake. This is why they have been silent. And then I hear now and then, you know, somebody coming up and saying, oh, this is not good. Oh, you know, what is happening? It really is too much, you know. And just a couple of days ago, a friend sent me, you know, that the founder of Human Rights Watch, you know, who's himself, I think, if I'm not mistaken, parents, maybe Holocaust survivors or something, you know, is speaking up, you know. Yes, I'm happy and I respect that he's speaking up, but now after 7 months, now after over 50,000 people dead, over 16,000 Palestinian children slaughtered, and let us not forget all of these wounded that will live forever with all of these amputations. They will live forever with all of this disability. And let's not forget all of these innocent souls that are until today, as we speak right now, under the rubbles. Does it have to take that much until people go out and speak out, and then we start to clap, you know? Oh, you know, look, this gentleman or this lady is speaking out. Yeah, wow, I should be impressed. I'm sorry, it does not impress me. Where were you before October 7? Where were you for the past 76 years? Why did it take that long for you to speak out? Why? Because they are dehumanizing people. They're dehumanizing people. And I even put it out on my Twitter account that I mean, shame on all artists, shame on all public figures, shame on all celebrities that do not use their platform to speak out against what's happening in occupied Palestine, against this US-funded, unequivocally funded and backed Israeli genocide against the Palestinians. Shame on them, because it's not even politics, it's about humanity.
Yes, absolutely. And one thing that you just said was like, if we draw, like, even if we draw the line right now, like, this was our red line. This is insane everything that we have let happen. And
there is no red line, you know. All
exactly,
of these politicians that go up, you know, they're just, you know, you know, they just go up, you know, to speak out because, you know, their entourage or their advisor or their consultant, you know, whispered in their ear, you know, people, you know, are speaking out, you know, it's too much, you know, okay, you know, in order, you know, to go out and you know, keep that certain face of them, as we say, you know. It's just, you know, murmuring words that are just there's no substance to these words. It doesn't matter what they say, it matters what's happening on the ground, you know. And can you imagine, it's like the US was saying that they have sent small bombs, you know, small bombs, in order that these small bombs do not make the heavy impact on,
like the
on
Germans
the
when
Palestinians,
they,
like
yeah,
the big ones.
yeah.
I mean,
It's like when the Germans said
somebody
in front
coming
of
to
the court,
slap
yeah.
you, but okay, instead of really slapping you with all my force, you know, somebody would
Yeah.
come and slap you with it just, I mean, I mean, the bottom line is the same. If it's a small bomb or it's a big bomb, I mean, with today's technology, what these bombs are doing, even a tiny small shrapnel. And I know what I'm talking about. I'm a war survivor. We have had all of these shrapnels all around. I lost family members. I lost friends. I lost neighbors. A tiny small shrapnel can make a person, you know, it can cut through the spinal cord and make you, you know, handicapped for the rest of your life. And they speak about tiny bombs, small bombs. I mean, they're insulting people's intelligence. It's disgusting. It's appalling. Alice, it's like there are no words in any language whatsoever to express this abomination, what is happening in occupied Palestine, in Gaza, and to the Palestinian people. It's an abomination. It is the biggest form of degeneration of humankind. And I thought I'd seen the worst. Apparently, it gets even worse and worse and worse. And I just hope that this is going to be the end of apartheid, the end of Zionism. And as I told you earlier, I still feel hope. I do have hope in the voices of the people speaking out, be it the independent journalists that are risking their lives every single day, the people, just, you know, normal people trying to upload, you know, on their platform, on social media, what is happening, you know, that the people see. Yes, yes, I do retain my faith. I do have hope that this whole nightmare, you know, that has been ongoing for 76 years. I mean, I've said it in my UN speech, and it's crazy. It's like it started in the 20th century, and it continues, you know, as if it's a normal day. It continues unabated into the 21st century. And only right now people have awakened. Well, if, although it's heartbreaking, it's heart-shattering, it's devastating what is happening and what has been happening. But if there is a silver lining that one can see, you know, it's that the whole world has seen the truth. And Gaza, the Palestinian people, has exposed who is the real oppressor, who is the terrorist, who is the aggressor, the oppressor, the settler colonialist, you know.
Absolutely. And you say something in your speech where you say, I think governments have never defeated apartheid. The solidarity of the
Absolutely, it's
people
the
did.
people. Yeah, it's the solidarity of the people did. And this is why I have hope. I do have hope, you know. It's like we had this imposed civil war on Lebanon, but it ended. Look at all of the wars. It ended, regardless how long it takes. But what tears me to pieces is the lives of these innocent people, the amputated babies, the children. That, I mean, it's gonna end. I know it's gonna end, but look at the price. Did we really have to pay such a high price? Did we really have to pay such a high price? The children, the babies, the screams. I mean, I cannot imagine, Alice, any person with just a little bit, a tiny bit of humanity, a tiny bit of conscience, cannot just, you know, go crazy, go insane of what is happening. You know, what is happening in occupied Palestine. This is I have no words anymore. I have no words, because sometimes I say, if I would express it in words, it would mean this, because a word starts somewhere and it ends somewhere. But what is happening is beyond words, beyond any form of language. You know, even as an artist myself, even as a poet, I can't. It's like I drop my pen, I let go of my pen. I can't speak anymore. I can't express myself. I can't sing, because perhaps there is more expression in my silence. Perhaps there is more expression in my pain, in my tears, in my heartache. Maybe then people will start to understand. People will start to wake up, you know.
What role did your music and your art play in your resistance? Like, how did it help you to maybe express, did it help you to express like all the trauma and the horrors that you experience and that you also do experience through your work by sharing great empathy with oppressed peoples, especially with the people of Palestine? Like, what do you think, like, what kind of role did your artistry play in that? Like, how do you use it as a tool?
It's a very good question. Thank you for asking me, Alice. It played a huge, huge role. And I have seen it by interacting with my fans. I'll tell you first, you know, I mean, maybe art has saved me, because as a child, I just didn't understand what was happening, and living constantly in fear it can drive you insane. But it's like being an artist, being a poet, writing poetry since the age of 11, and always in the language of English, because I fell in love with with this language. So it was, for me, art was like a catharsis for me, you know, to try to digest and go through whatever. And then I started writing songs, and then when I went on stage and I sang, that was my way of trying, you know, to process all the negativity, but turn it into something positive, you know, because I don't believe in violence, you know. And I was just singing out my heart. I was singing my heart out, and on stage, I was expressing, you know, all of this anger and frustration in me. I was trying to channel it through my music. And I remember many times, you just reminded me, Alice, of a beautiful incident where parents wanted to come and see me backstage. And they came and hugged me and told me, thank you for saving the lives of our sons. And I said, saving the lives? I just didn't understand what they were saying. And a mother told me, you know, it's because of you my two sons are alive today. And I said, really? How is that? She said, because they had the choice of either carrying a Kalashnikov or a guitar. And it's because of you they chose to carry a guitar and not a Kalashnikov. Because during the imported civil war on Lebanon, there were so many militias that were recruiting young people, you know, school students, you know, I mean, and a lot of people just didn't want that, you know. And then I realized through my fans telling me that, you know, we had really no other choice. Either we have to join in, or we just have to, you know, lose our lives, you know, and try to follow our dreams. But because the pressure of the war was so much, you know, day in, day out, you know, that most of them were compelled to go and you know, enlist and go into militias and start carrying, you know, all of these Kalashnikovs and fight. And so many lost their lives. But, you know, for what? For nothing. It's crazy. So this is why I feel that since that moment, actually, and through my fans expressing to me how much my music and my art has affected them positively. And like this family with the mother and father, telling me that it's because of me they're both of her sons, are musicians today. This is the impact of art. I strongly believe that art. I said heart.
That's
Well, heart is
beautiful.
heart.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, art is heart. Yeah, and heart is art. Yeah, it's beautiful because I call myself an artist with a purpose, and I saw it, firsthand. I experienced it. That through using my art, I can highlight and advocate and promote even more humanitarian causes and peace and love and coexistence. Because art also is such a beautiful medium. Because it is so subtle, it's non-imposing, it has the ability to touch people at a very deep level, and transform their emotions. And if you can transform emotion, you can transform behavior. I strongly believe in this. And this is how I was able to do it as an artist. I transformed, their emotions, and it just reflected into their behavior as well. And like these two brothers, who are musicians, carrying guitars rather than Kalashnikov. So this is beautiful. The impact of art is so huge and so beautiful, and it sheds no blood whatsoever. On the contrary, it is a balm to wounds. And it uplifts the spirit. And this is what uplifted me also during the war. With the sound of the bombs, all the time, especially, during the time when we had all the neighbors, sleeping mats on the floor, mattresses on the floor everywhere, and trying to share our fear, and express it, and eat together and try to uplift our spirit, and also music played a huge role. And it doesn't matter. It could be even when I write poetry or write lyrics. That uplifts me as well, because it also allows me to express myself. It's a beautiful medium, and this is why it makes me sad to see so many artists not using their medium in order to speak out, because art is so powerful. And I don't know if a lot of artists are aware of the greatness and of the great impact that art can have on people, in war, in conflicts, in all kinds of human struggle. Art is so significant in every single way, be it poetry, music, painting. But I mean, the only thing is that, I mean, with all the art available, the art world, it's like music is the most impactful, because you can immediately, listen to it, and it affects your heart, it affects your emotion. So I guess I'm lucky, or blessed, to be a singer and to be able to channel it through my singing voice and my songs.
That's beautiful. Yes, of course. I would like to return a little bit to something that you said about the historical context of Zionism in your speech. So the reason why I want to talk about this is that many people in Germany, they're very unaware that the occupation of Palestine, and especially also the brutality and the dehumanization against Palestinians, did not start just last October, but it stretches all the way back to 1948. You also mentioned that already a few times. And a lot of them here have never heard about the Nakba. I think it's less than 13% of the population. That was like from a recent study. So when we think about when we think about the current genocide against Palestinians, and then also about the demand of what you hear often on the streets here, like we want 48, we want to return to that situation of 1948, we want to have this right to return. Can you elaborate a little bit what this is, and also how how like Zionism played a role a little bit in that, of like creating like a historical context of diminishing that Palestinians even had a land and had a right to return to?
Yeah, I mean, it is first very important to note here that Zionism has nothing to do with Judaism, you know.
Yes.
And sadly, or maybe people are not aware about this. I don't know if it's willful ignorance that they don't want to say that, but Zionism has nothing to do with Judaism, you know. And the irony, it's the contrary, it's the opposite. Zionists are atheists, you know, they have nothing to do with religion. And Zionism has nothing to do with Judaism. And you hear a lot of wonderful Jewish people on the street everywhere in the world, you know, speaking out against what the Zionist government in occupied Palestine is doing and has been doing for the past 76 years. And before Zionism came into the occupied land, into occupied Palestine, I mean, historical Palestine, the Holy Land of Palestine, people were living, you know, together. Christians, Jews, Muslims, they were coexisting. You see videos from those days before 1948, how they were really coexisting and living together, you know, babysitting each other's children, you know. It was a peaceful, beautiful, vibrant culture with beautiful mosaic of wonderful people. It was like an example of how societies should be and must be, you know, regardless of their religion. It was so beautiful, and one reads about it, you know. It doesn't require a rocket scientist to try to, you know, in a way decode what was happening before 1948. There are archives everywhere, but only if people really are sincere and want to really get to the root of the cause, which is Zionism. And before 1948, you know, there were no problems whatsoever in Palestine. And unfortunately, the problem that happened in Germany, the Holocaust, the shameful Holocaust that happened in Germany, unfortunately, who has to pay the price in the end? Did it have to be the Palestinians losing their land? I mean, that is not fair. That is not just, you know. Before 1948, there were Jews, there were Christians, there were Muslims living in Palestine, and unfortunately, Zionism came into the form of terrorist organization like the Irgun and all of these terrorist Zionist terrorist organizations, and they brought havoc to the Palestinians. And unfortunately, with the British mandate, and everybody knows the Balfour, you know, agreement, which, you know, just offered Palestine on a silver plate to the Zionists, you know.
Can you quickly explain the Balfour Declaration for maybe listeners who don't know what it is?
If
you can briefly explain the Balfour Declaration for maybe listeners who don't know what it is. If you could explain quickly.
The Balfour Declaration.
Yes, exactly.
It was. The Balfour Declaration is known as, you know, the public statement that came out from England, you know, to support the establishment of the Zionist state. You know, so, and this is why people always refer to it, but it was made under the British, because the Brits were, it was under the British mandate, you know, occupied Palestine was under the British mandate, and the Balfour Declaration was issued under the British government, and I believe it was in maybe the First World War. You know, I mean, maybe they made that declaration, and unfortunately, wanted to declare that the national home for the Jewish people is going to be Palestine, which is totally unfair. You know, it's like. I still can't. I mean, even if that thing happened so many years ago, decades, you know, but you still, when you think about it, it's just total insanity, you know, because the Brits were ruling the Holy Land. Then they thought that they have the right, you know, to just, you know, transform this land into something else, transform it into a national home for the Jewish people. And I have Jewish friends, and they tell me, you know, I mean, it has nothing to do. We Jews, you know, we are not a nation, you know. We're just people, and we don't need a country, you know. It's against their it's against their Judaism, it's against their culture, it's against their religion even. So the Balfour Declaration was a total disaster, a total treachery to the Palestinians, to humanity even. It's a doomed declaration. It should be called the doomed Balfour Declaration, which brought havoc to Palestine. And in 1948, all of these terrorist organizations, they were, you know, they went in and they burnt over 700 villages of Palestine. They displaced, God knows, millions of people. They slaughtered so many people, and there are so many massacres from Deir Yassin to so many other, you know, I mean, it never stops, you know. I mean, it's a whole history. It's a whole history that unfortunately Britain has blood on its hand because of this Balfour Declaration, and they have responsibility even, you know, which they did not even adhere to the responsibility that they created this whole thing, you know, and they continue perpetuating this injustice from 1948 until today.